Coming up on this week's Green Signals. A recent poll says 7 in 10 Brits want the government to use savings from nationalising the railways to cut rail fares and open new services. Our eyebrows headed for the skies. The Tarka Line is still closed and a 3,000 signature petition is demanding improvements. And we discuss whether you'd need to be mad to take on the role of GBR's first chair. So welcome to Green Signals on a very busy railway week from me, Nigel Harris, and...
from me, Richard Bowker.
So let's dive straight in, Richard. We start with that new poll commissioned by campaign group We Own It, carried out for them by polling company Survation. In a press release, We Own It said the new poll shows 7 in 10 Brits say the government should use all savings from ending rail privatisation to cut fares or open new services. A majority say they'd be more likely to travel by rail if fares were reduced, which campaigners say can create a virtuous circle in the railway. Almost 6 in 10 say public ownership should involve passenger representatives on the board of GBR. In its press release, We Own It says it's working with MPs Chris Hinchliffe, Richard Quigley, Steve Witherden, Labour, and Sean Berry, Green, on amendments to the government's railways bill to secure fare cuts for passengers, an end to private rolling stock, the creation of a stronger role for passengers in GBR, and reopen rail services in underserved areas. Green MP Sean Berry is quoted. The public is fed up with the outrageous profiteering of rolling stock leasing companies as they line the pockets of shareholders with record profits, while rail passengers are made to pay the bill with rising rail fares. The government must fill the gap in its rail reform plans and bring rolling stock into public ownership too. This massive drain on public finances must end, along with this gross injustice. Richard, it all sounds a bit to me like the most naive kind of student union politics, long on demands and short on realism. What say you?
Well, my immediate reaction, Nigel, was when they said, they should use all savings from ending rail privatisation. I thought, well, what savings? I mean, savings from ending rail privatisation, I'm not convinced. Savings from doing things differently and better, well, that's a different matter, but it's not really a privatisation, nationalisation issue. And as for Sean Berry's quote, well, I'll have whatever she's had, to be honest, because it sounds good. I mean, it's a curious headline, wasn't it?
Oh.
1,016 people they polled, right? Which is,
a sample.
It's a decent sample. I had a look at what's considered a correctly representative sample,
Okay.
And sure enough, that sample size will have a margin of error of about plus or minus 3 percentage points with a 95% confidence level. So actually, no, that's okay. But I don't think you can say that means 7 out of 10 Brits, because that's about, there's 60 odd million, aren't there? So I don't think you can say
3/4 of that.
But to me, this is just ideologically driven. So that was kind of my initial reaction, Nigel. I thought you put it very well. Sort of long on demands, short on realism. I thought is a fairly nicely succinct view of it.
It was the most. I mean, we've talked about ideology a lot of thee and me in this last few months about ideologies from both sides of the political divide. But this is the most ideologically driven thing I think I've seen in terms of what he's saying.
Well, when you look at what We Own It, this campaign group, said in August last year, right? So they published this paper. It was something like "Passengers Before Profit," something like that. That was if that's not the precise title, that was the inference of it. And it included this paragraph in their conclusions, right? So this is before the Railways Bill came out, right? So this is August last year. They said, to make the most of this historic opportunity, the government must have an ambitious vision and provide funding for it. Okay, we can't argue with that. But then they said, stop profits leaking out of the system, prioritise socio-economic impact instead of competition law, and put passengers at the heart of the new structure. Now, this stop profits leaking out of the system, right? This is the bit that I think is purely ideological. Right. So let's have a simple example. If I said to you, for the public sector to do a task, it would cost 100 units, whatever that was, right? But if we got the private sector to do it by way of a contract or a concession or a partnership, and they were going to take 5 units of profit out, but the overall cost was still 95, right? Which is better? The public sector doing it for 100 or having it for 95, knowing that 5 is also going out to shareholders in terms of profit? And the answer to that is, if you think that the public sector doing it for 100 is the right answer, you're delusional, right? Clearly the second is better. Yeah. And so now that all assumes that you've structured it right and it's managed right and excessive profits are not being earned. But find me a train operator who thinks in the last 10 years, really, they've been earning excessive profits out of running franchises, then, fairly good. I mean, look, we'll say it again. It doesn't matter who owns it,
Totally irrelevant.
We own it.
It's how you run it that matters.
It's how you run it, how it's structured, and how empowered the people are. Yes, you can set clear accountability. Yes, you can have clear KPIs, key performance indicators. Transport Select Committee has been talking about quite a lot of that recently. Come back to them maybe in a bit. But I mean, I think if you read the We Own It stuff, I think they just seem to sort of have this ideological axe to grind, and I don't think it's grounded in what necessarily makes the most
lining
rational
shareholders' profits, profiteering, creaming this off. It's real Animal Farm economics, isn't it? It's private bad, public good. That's the sum total of what they're saying.
It does feel, that sort of very simplistic view that if it's in the public sector, it's going to be better and profit is a bad thing. I say they're quite careful in some of their language, and they talk about, they've done some research and got models around efficient public bodies. I haven't got any issue with that per se, but I really do think that the challenge now for the next 3, 5, 10 years, whatever you want to call it, is actually to keep this quite simple. Get the right people in charge, set them clear targets, but not have layers of supervisory this or, supervisory that, with everybody wanting to feel that they have skin in the game, as telling you what you can do. I kind of feel a bit, it's a bit like back in Strategic Rail Authority days, everybody in the world wanted to tell me that they could do a better job. Well, that's fine, but a smaller group had been made accountable for it, and you've got to let them get on it and do it. And it's not about nationalisation or privatisation. It's about that. Look, a fascinating poll, but just ideologically driven from my point of view.
And that last point, Heidi was saying again last night, about wanting professionals in there running it. Well, that's going to be the challenge for Andrew Haynes, Richard George and Alex Hines, isn't it? To keep the DFT at arm's length. I said, I'll believe it. I'll believe it's starting to work when Katie Austin asks a question of the Secretary of State and the Secretary of State replies, sorry, that's an operational matter for the GBR board.
And I think that is your point, maybe the last point on this. You say about keeping the DFT at arm's length. Yes, but only on those things where they shouldn't be involved. Yes, There's loads of things where they should be.
Yeah,
right?
But you know the point I'm making.
I do know the point, but I think it's worth just emphasising the operational issues, the day-to-day. That is where it should be in the hands of empowered professionals.
Hence, that's an operational matter for the GBRB. Yeah. Right, I can take a hint, Richard. We'll move on.
Fair enough. Keep going.
Oh, right. Okay. Building on that, perhaps, Richard, a petition, you can't beat a good petition, has been submitted to Parliament by Ian Room, Lib Dem MP for North Devon, and signed by more than 3,000 people. Again, a worthwhile sample, calling for action to improve the Tarka Line, which links Barnstaple with Exeter. Hansard records Mr. Room's petition as follows. Further to our online petition, signed by more than 3,000 people calling for the Tarka rail line to be future-proofed, I present this petition on behalf of rail passengers in northern Devon who have suffered overcrowding and repeated service disruption due to flooding this winter. despite a record-breaking 1 million rail journeys per year between Barnstaple and Exeter. Following Storm Chandra, all trains have been cancelled. North Devon's rail link has been shut for over a week and services will not resume for 7 more days. The petitioners therefore request that the House of Commons urge the government to ask Network Rail and Great Western to prioritise the Tarka Line for improvements and to work together to make rail travel in North Devon more resilient. Richard, you do have to feel for them, don't you? And that 1 million figure caught my eye. This is no sleepy and lightly used Thomas the Tank Engine country branch line, is it?
Not now.
Although
not
it
now.
seems to be regarded thus, maybe.
Yeah, and I think that's a mistake. I mean, I went on that line in the 80s because, even then it was sort of still rumoured to be under threat. And I remember going on the DMU down to Barnstaple, and I had a great conversation with a guard along the way because otherwise he wouldn't have had anybody else to talk to. I mean, it was literally kind of me and him and the driver.
Right.
It's not like that now, right?
A million a year, that's a lot.
That is very significant. I absolutely do feel for them. But the comment, to ask Network Rail and Great Western GWR to prioritise the Tarka Line for improvements, I just don't think that's, again, understanding who's actually pulling the strings here on money, right? Network Rail have got fixed amounts of money in the control period, and already it's proving to be not enough. Great Western Railway have got very clear targets, and they've got, yes, they can manage net subsidy to an extent, but the kind of improvements we talk about here are serious amounts of money. I'm not saying they shouldn't be done, but you can't, asking Network Rail and GWR is not the answer, right? So that it's a real challenge. But they're going to get Class 175s on the route eventually. They will have some benefits because I think they have selective door operation, and some of the challenges on that line are short platforms, aren't they? So if you've got SDO, you can have longer trains like the 175. You can have 3-car trains and not have to extend the platforms.
That's
which
right.
obviously
Just open
means
the
you
doors
get
for one carriage or whatever.
Exactly. So you get more capacity without massive infrastructure improvements. That's good. But their issue here is this flooding. I mean, jeepers, it's bad. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm not a civil or a engineer, but it's expensive, whatever it is.
It's a bit anecdotal, is this? I remember discussing exactly this many years ago with Robin Gisby when he was responsible for this sort of thing. And I remember him saying, he said, that what we need to sort out Cowley Bridge, where the junction is, it needs almost like a long, low viaduct with lots of gaps underneath it because the current railway just acts as a dam. He says, and that will sort it, but it's an expensive option.
Oh, I mean, huge. So here's a question for you, right? And this is one for green signalers to sort of comment on, because I'm sure there'll be comments on this, right? If you assume that we live in a capital-constrained world, because if you don't assume we live in a capital-constrained world, then then you can spend anything on anything, right? If you believe we do live in a capital-constrained world, is it right to say, look, I'm terribly sorry, we can't reopen or we can't develop this or this upgrade or that new station or whatever, because actually we're going to have to divert money into maintaining what we've got on things like the Tarka Line? Or if you do want all those other things because you think they're more economically advantageous, you've either got to live with the fact that the Tarka Line is going to be disrupted for 6 weeks of the year, or on some lines like Lou, which is currently, doing a passable impersonation of a swimming pool, you might have to abandon it, right? Those are some of the choices that we're going to have to, because there's this assumption that everybody can have everything. It's not real.
Well, it's the old to govern is to choose, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know.
Now, I know what I would do. Right? I know what I would do. And it's not about politics. 1 million passengers on Barnstaple. There's a market. Serve it, support it,
they deserve,
invest in it.
Yeah.
Don't, if people are charging you £25 million for a new station, guess what? Don't build any. Until you can get them down
it
to...
here first.
Right, well, choices, dear friend.
There you go.
Yep.
We look forward to, and I'm sure we will, Richard, read their opinions across the spectrum in the comments, as we usually do.
We usually do, very quickly and very clearly.
Oh, yeah, there's no room for doubt. Right, the good news, of course, is that a new rail czar, yawn, a newspaper's description, not ours, will be appointed to sort everything out. A job advert for the chair of GBR has been published by the DFT. The closing date for applications is midday, February 23rd. Should any of you be interested, and according to the advert, pin and back, as the inaugural chair, you will lead a bold mission. That's a bit Star Trek, isn't it? To reimagine how rail serves the nation, driving transformational and cultural change and commercial excellence across one of the UK's largest public bodies, whilst being responsible for the safety of the railway and everyone who interacts with it, staff, passengers, and the public. You'll do this by shaping GBR's culture and strategy, managing and optimising infrastructure assets, being a powerful advocate for passengers and freight customers, and championing safety, reliability and accessibility. You will ensure GBR delivers an excellent service to passengers now and for generations to come, delivers value for the tax and fare payer, and unlocks economic growth and innovation. And that's all before lunch. Richard, job of the century. Surely they should have people queuing up for it.
Well, they may well do. Whether they're the right people to have queuing, I'm not sure. I mean, it's extraordinary when you read that, isn't it? Yeah, this is a job for 3 days a week, right? I mean, blimey, as you say, what are you going to do
after lunch?
I mean, I take a slightly contrary view, perhaps, to many on this, because the same advert says the following, right? It says, "We very much welcome applicants from proven leaders of all backgrounds, from both within and outside the rail sector." Okay, we'll come back to that point. "We are committed to diversity, good, and believe our public appointments should reflect our customers, the travelling public, who come from all walks of life. We welcome fresh talent and perspectives to help us better understand the needs of the communities we serve," which rather suspects that they're saying that existing railway people don't, which I do find a bit rude, actually, anyway.
Insulting, but even.
Then it goes on to say, "This includes people who never have applied for a public appointment, but could bring new ideas, insights, and energy." Right, first thing. If you've never applied for a public appointment and are not sure what is involved in being in the glare of the public spotlight, and you are listening to this, please take this as loving, respectful advice. Do not apply for this role. Do not, right? I've just saved you an extraordinary amount of pain, right?
Well, you know.
This is not a job for a newbie, right? Actually, I also think it's not the most important job in the railway. Still very much of the view, the most important job is the CEO.
Chief Exec.
Right. Why is that? It's because the chief executive's job is to run the organisation. The chair's job is to run the board and support the chief executive and his or her executive team in running the organisation. So in terms of building a team for the long-term culture, skills development, that is the job of the CEO. Now, can't be done without a supportive chair working in partnership together, right? But I remember when I was on the board of the Football League, the chair then was a chap called Greg Clark, right, who's had a big background in telecoms and very experienced chair. And he was very passionate about this. I've never forgotten. He said that, my job is to be, I am expendable, right? I am expendable. The CEO, they're the one that's built the team. If we lose them, we lose momentum. So I am the fire brake to basically, take the hits and the bullets. And he was right. He's absolutely right about that. So that the CEO is the crucial thing here. And I don't know what your view on this. Let me try this one on you.
Go on.
I think the last thing that the CEO of GBR needs is a chair who has come from completely outside the industry and doesn't have any real understanding, but has lots of fresh new ideas and insight, and then have to manage that and deal with that and almost help educate them whilst at the same time pulling off the most extraordinary industry transition and turnaround and whatever. I think that is as near a recipe for absolute madness for all of them involved as anything. So my view, start of a 10, is that whoever does this mustn't necessarily be I don't mean dyed in the wool, sort of old fashioned, isn't open to new ideas person, because that's almost an even bigger nightmare. But I do not think it can be from somebody, that this can be somebody who is completely new to the industry and from outside. I think that is a recipe for real problem.
Somehow, unusually, Richard, we are in complete heated agreement on all that.
Excellent. Well, that's good.
The last thing we need is another export from Ford or an oil company who knows sod all about the railway, and the CEO, who's up to his proverbials in muck and bullets, has to spend a year educating about what he should think.
Well, I've seen it happen.
Well, we have on the railway, haven't we?
It's a real problem. I mean, the only person I can really think of who kind of carried it off, and we'll come back to maybe leadership in a bit, was Sir Peter Parker. I mean, who was from outside the industry, but it's a different world as well. It was a different era, different time.
Eras. I mean, so what sort of people would there be sort of now who maybe are a bit outside, who could bring, what's the name? Street.
Andy Street.
I wondered about him. I thought, would he be an interesting sort of candidate?
I think he's got one massive problem, which is that he's a
conservative
Tory or prospect or whatever it is now. But and I think this government clearly likes it likes people that it feels that it can,
people like us,
it can chime with. And I suppose there's some logic in that, because you need good chemistry. Whoever this person is has got to be able to get along with and work alongside the politicians, and that's really important. So I wouldn't be disrespectful of that as a notion, but I think they tend to like people who are, kind of aligned, let's put it like that. So, but Andy Street as a set of skills is a great shout, because, savvy politician, very passionate, very driven, and does understand,
communicates
transport and community and the role of place. And you wouldn't have to sit down with Andy Street and say, right, so this is a train and this is how it works. I don't think you'd have to do that.
Sounds like we're interviewing him for the job, doesn't it? Maybe he might be a bit inclined to a bit more of a public role than you're outlining should be the case. But anyway, we'll wait and see.
Well, actually, so let's just talk about that. That's the interesting point, right? So I think the challenge for the CEO is that there are only 7 days in a week, right? And this is going to be the most extraordinary job. You are going to need your chair to be able to kind of almost be your wing person when you need them to be that, right? So, everybody and his dog is going to want a piece of the CEO when GBR is stood up. You're not going to be able to see everybody and go everywhere all at the same time. Your chair is going to have to help you do that, right? And the likes of Andy Street, I know, we're just using him as an example, has got the skills and ability to do that. So that is a really good thing. But he has spent a lot of time learning about transport. So it's clearly probably not him for the reasons we've just mentioned, but somebody like that. So it doesn't have to be a railway person, but it does have to be, I think your point about oil and Ford is right. It just can't be somebody who just doesn't understand any of it. I think that'd be a terrible mistake.
Indeed. I mean, the way you're describing it, it seemed to me at the time that Hendy did a good job in that respect to Andrew, being his wingman and supporting and all the rest of it at Network Rail.
Yeah, and they got on extremely well. I think that's really important. I mean, what's the focus got to be for the next 3 or 4 years? We just talked about it in a previous story. It's quite boring, actually, right? I think whoever comes in, and I mean that as a collective team, is going to have to prioritize. You cannot do everything that everybody wants you to do all at the same time. So very boring issues around performance,
make it
reliability.
Boring, tedious, safe, reliable.
Tedious, boring, reliable rail is safe. Yeah, that's the key. And whoever also does it has to have excellent collaboration skills, but also has to be able to speak truth to power and tell a few people kindly and nicely a few very inconvenient truths. I think the real issue, though, is about leadership, which we just and respect, right? Because if you want to experiment with getting in fresh insight, new ideas, all that kind of stuff, that's why you have non-executive directors, independents who can come and do that. I used to have some of those on the SRA board, they drove me absolutely batty at times because they were brilliant at just go, well, what about this from this perspective? So on GBR, that's where you bring in your left field view.
You're thinking outside the box stuff.
Absolutely. And, whether it's retail or whatever it is. But the leadership, I think, has got to be somebody that 100,000 railway people, the family, and that's not including all the supply chain, when their name is announced, go, well, I don't necessarily agree with them on everything, but they get it. I'll follow them, right? And if you do that, you'll win over the industry quickly, or at least you buy yourself some time. If, however, they go, what on earth do they know? There's a serious risk of losing the industry
from the outset,
very quickly. Yeah. And I think that would be a disaster. So, yeah, bad news is, mate, if you haven't had the tap on the shoulder already, I suspect you're not in the running. Because that's, these systems, these processes, the headhunter, they're doing their job, is doing a search, is finding out who's out there who could be interested in it. So, but I just hope that they're following an approach broadly along the lines we've just talked about. Well, we, of course, are correct.
Indeed, absolutely. let us hope so. We will be keeping our fingers on the pulse and keeping green signals fully informed of whatever seems to be happening or what we think might be happening or what we'd like to happen, as we usually do. Now, one solution frequently offered up when sponsors are faced with a funding challenge is, let's get some private finance. Yeah, it's just not that easy. Far from it. I can see you nodding out the corner of my eye, Richard. The scheme must be attractive to private finance. The risks must be clearly understood. And the role of the public sector also has to be really clear. And then when you need to find investors who want to invest. Well, leading consultant Atkins Realis has recently surveyed over 100 institutional investors from across the globe and believe that the answer is that whilst there is a strong appetite to invest, the window of opportunity may not stay open for that long. Richard spoke with Managing Director of Atkins Realis UK and Ireland Transportation business, Colette Carroll, about the findings of the report. If you're interested in whether private finance can play a role in UK rail, the full interview is well worth listening to. It is not as dry as you might think, so do give it a go. And will be published in full on Tuesday, February 17th at midday. Meanwhile, here's a taster from Richard's conversation.
But that is always going to be a challenge, isn't it, for private finance, convincing people that actually it's okay to have people coming in, taking out some form of profit stream because the net effect is better. Do you feel that we're mature enough now to be able to have that conversation and kind of win people over?
I think so. I think that back to that opportunity. I think the creation of NISTA is a great thing. Right. I really think that the creation of NISTA is a great thing around how do you get a different narrative about the importance of infrastructure and what it delivers. And also that they have been super clear from the start that this can only be done if there is private investment as well. If you want that big old pipeline, that needs other sources of funding. So that for me feels like a flipping point. It's not an apologetic thing anymore. It's a realistic thing to say. I do think that what is really important is actually some of the other changes that we can see around business case, which is if you open up the business case appraisal to allow for more local outcomes and other outcomes to be valued, you start to actually close the gap, in my view, Richard, between, what is the outcome of private investment having come along? Because you're now starting to point towards economic benefits and social benefits that previously, on a much sort of tighter kind of appraisal methodology, you would not have given that value to the scheme. And so, you get this disconnect between what the private investment was able to enable and then the outcome, the true outcome at the end. Or if you don't invest, the outcomes you see.
It's going to be very interesting, Colette, isn't it? When the first real test of place-based appraisal, if we want to call it that, comes along, for the Treasury to go, oh, okay then, or actually, do you know what? No. And that is going to be a really interesting moment.
It is, but I think, there's a lot of work in the background going on. And, what I think is going to be really apparent is that those first business cases that seek to use a different appraisal are very much pilots that have got quite a lot of interest in, because there's an interest in making sure that it doesn't fall flat on its face. And
the venerable, that's a good word, isn't it? Venerable. Class 37 diesel electric locomotive is one of British Rail's most enduring designs. 309 growlers or tractors, take your pick, were built between 1960 and 1965 at various works, and dozens of them are still operational today. Is it around 100, Richard?
Something like that. Yeah.
Europhoenix Rail, though, is going even further. It's looking at life extension of these highly flexible and dependable workhorses by converting them to operate on hydro-treated vegetable oil, or HVO. They're going to become the B-52 bomber of the railway, Richard, if they aren't already. On Tuesday, February 3rd, Europhoenix rolled out the converted locomotive for the ultimate test, a mainline run from Leicester to Barrow Hill and back. And Richard, the jammy beggar, as my mum would have said, was on board in the cab to see how it went. Here's a taster of what he saw. And as you'll see, he was, without question, the most excited man in the room.
As I wander around the loco, admiring it from every conceivable angle, I ask Glenn how it's going and just how important is today's test. And how's it gone so far? Are you pleased with early sort of shakedown test?
No, all good so far. Touch wood. But
although having said that, this is the first really big trip out on the network, isn't it? I must admit, I'm incredibly excited about that. I'm very honoured. So is this the real test?
This will be one of them, yes. Yeah, and then some loaded test runs after this to get a feel for how it performs, yes.
We're getting close to departure time. So Colin Hatton, our driver for the day, comes into the shed to fire up first 37423 and then 37218, the locomotive that has been converted to HVO. Although we are running light engine to Barrow Hill today, the team are taking 2 locomotives just in case, and it's a sensible precaution. Although the initial tests have gone very well, today we're going to be out on the main line, and we do not want to find ourselves the cause of significant delay. I climb into the cab and settle down for the trip. I'm joined by Steve Ellis, Head of Operations for Europhoenix. To begin with, Colin is at the other end of the consist of 2 locomotives, because we're going to go south to Leicester Station first and then reverse before heading north. It's a really miserable, cold, dank, grey day, but nothing can dampen my sense of excitement as we set off north and onto the Midland Main Line itself. This is an extraordinarily busy section of railway. We pass freight heading north, and then the curious sight.
The full video is available on our channel, whether you watch on YouTube or Spotify. It's a belter, so do go and have a look. As of this morning, Wednesday, February 11th, it's had 14,000 views in just 20 hours. So it's another GS box office success. Do give it a watch. And let me give you a tip, and let me give the Greiser in me full rein. Crank the volume all the way to number 12 for the opening scenes.
It does sound fantastic, doesn't it? Yeah.
That opening shot through the cab window, and turn the volume up. You're going to love it. You are going to fancy it. The scope on this programme for the niceties and difficulties of the chair at GBR to gricing after a growler.
Yeah.
It's all in. I make no apology for that, and we are proud of it.
Excellent.
And now it's time to thank everyone who supports us. Thanks, first of all, to RIA, the Railway Industry Association, our programme supporter, and to Rail Business Daily, our media supporter. Then a big thank you to everyone who's left us a super thanks on YouTube this week, and it's a good old crop. Deep breath. You all are Bob Walsh, Caroline Cleveley, John W., Alan Kirkman, Mike Heinson-Evans, Colin F125, Graham Whitley, John Kirkman, Andrew Seddon, Alistair Rutledge, the Independent Brigline Rail Group, Phil Craig, Richard Skelton, Max Eves, Brian Hibbs, and James Piggins. Thank you to everyone who leaves us a super thanks. It really does help us to do what we do, and Richard, Stef and I are always eternally grateful. Thank you.
We are indeed. And thanks also to Studio 65, who upgraded their membership from bronze to silver this week. Thank you. We do publish a list of all our supporters and members, bronze, silver, gold, in the end credits of the show. And you do make all of this possible. So if you're not already a member and you enjoy what we do, please click join on YouTube or click the link in the description to our Patreon page to find out more about that.
And now it's time for this week's Railway News Roundup. Now, we had loads of positive comments on our Blackpool Tram story last week, and it does appear that there's been some subsequent movement. We might have moved the needle a bit, Richard. Thanks to many green signals for alerting us to this, including Rob Kitching and David Redgewell. Local Blackpool South MP Chris Webb has been instrumental in securing some additional funding, and on Monday, February 9th, Blackpool Council issued a press release. In it, they said, Blackpool Council has today announced it will direct money to reopen Tramtown Museum. The Visitor Museum had closed temporarily due to an electrical fault. However, Blackpool Council will use funds from the UK government's Pride in Place Impact Fund to fix the electrics so the building can open again. The work will begin this week so the museum can reopen early next month ahead of the summer season. Leader of the council, Lynn Williams, said over the next few months we will be working with Tramtown to finalise a funding bid for a new, proper visitor attraction and restoring the main shed where the trams are held. While those plans involve a new home for the workshop, visitor attraction and equipment, in the meantime, we're trying to find ways to keep the visitor attraction open for the short term. This money will allow us to carry out some temporary repairs to the electrics so that it can reopen while we focus on a funding bid for a more permanent home. The other week, I spoke to some of the really passionate volunteers at Tramtown, and hopefully this news will be a relief to them that they can get back into the building that they care so passionately about. There's still much to do, of course, but it's a start, Richard, and a welcome one at that. I think it's about £50,000 was involved.
Yeah, and you kind of go, well, fair play.
Yeah,
and it's good.
I do sense that the council is reading the room maybe a bit better than it was, and seems acutely aware that they're being watched, and will make sure that continues.
Absolutely right.
Because it is such a worthy thing. So well done to all the volunteers and the people who are working so hard for the trams. Blackpool,
and well done to Blackpool Council for doing this.
For actually listening and doing something about it. That is not always the case. So let us give credit where it's due.
Absolutely. And on from some good news to some more challenging news, a double dose of bad news for the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. Thanks to Michael Horsfield, David Morris and Simon Wadsworth for this one. Well, the first bit of bad news was the announcement that Bridge 42 at Gromont, it's the bridge between the sort of the tunnel and the level crossing, isn't it? It's vital. It had to be closed to carry out repairs. Now, it's a critical piece of infrastructure. It carries every train on the railway. The railway say it supports about 10,000 locomotive movements each year. I presume that means light movements as well.
Well, because they go back and forth to the shed, don't they, as well as the passenger traffic.
And the North Yorkshire Moors Railway say the bridge has stood proudly over the River Merk-esque since 1846. So it's had 180 years of faithful service. It's Grade 2 listed. It needs urgent repairs to keep trains running in the future. And whilst it's closed, trains can't access Gromont, and therefore they can't get to Whitby either, which is is a huge impact. Now, we understand that they are going to prop up the bridge as a temporary measure to enable the season to begin in March. That's going to, of course, cost a lot of money as well. and there's an appeal. We'll put the link to that on our website, but it's not the long-term fix, is it? So that's
it will enable them to run this year, because they are screwed without it.
Well, without that, they've got real problems. So no, that's great. But if that wasn't bad enough, on the 23rd of January, the Yorkshire Post, I think, and other outlets reported this as well, reported that thieves had stolen £10,000 of lead from Pickering Station, the roof, I guess. And in doing so, we understand they caused damage estimated at £20,000 on top.
Appalling.
It is appalling. The British Transport Police have issued an image of a white VW Tiguan believed to have been used in the theft, with a man standing close by to it. So anyone recognising either the car or the man are urged to contact the British Transport Police by text on 61016 or by calling 0800 40 50 40. So that's 0800 40 50 40, using the reference 2600008502. If you've got any information, I'm sure the British Transport Police would, and North Yorkshire Moors Railway, would love to hear it.
It makes the blood boil, doesn't it? I mean, when you look at how many millions of hours of voluntary effort go into it, and then somebody does that, it's just appalling.
It's horrid.
Let's hope they catch the beggars, eh?
Indeed.
Thanks to Debbie Sharp, Jim Millington and John Kirkman for this one. Reopening of the Ivanhoe Line in Leicestershire is looking further away than ever, according to a local councillor. On Wednesday, January 28th, Amanda Hack, Labour MP for North West Leicestershire, raised the campaign to reopen the line, which used to connect Leicester and Burton-on-Trent through Colville and Ashby de la Zouche. During a debate in Parliament, she said, "We want to keep putting the pressure on to get this line up and running for passenger traffic as soon as possible," she said following the debate. Hack added, "We have an existing line that's still in place, that's already been used for freight. It makes absolute sense to reopen it for passenger services." Because it's never that simple, is it? And since then, Adam Tilbury, who is Reform's cabinet member for highways, transport and waste on the county council, has, according to the BBC, said despite decades of campaigning, the project was dead and unlikely to acquire support from the current Labour government. Of Amanda Hack's comments in Parliament, Mr. Tilbury is reported to have said, "Her concerns have fallen on deaf ears, unfortunately. We are massively in debt as a country. There is no appetite for it. I don't think it's going to happen in this government's lifetime. It's dead, really."
Well, we need the money for the Tarka Line and the Loo Branch and so on, don't we? So there you go. Now, here's a cracking story that wins the "oh dear, I think someone could have lost the plot."
I couldn't believe this. I thought it was April 1st.
Well, I did too, although I've seen quite a lot of people saying, "Oh, this is wonderful vision." And I must admit, I'm either getting old and cynical, I don't get it, right?
But you know what they say about people who have visions?
Well, RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects, President Chris Williamson has apparently proposed linking 9 cities in Britain and Ireland, Northern Ireland as well, and yes, you heard this correctly, with an elevated high-speed railway informed by the NEOM mega project in Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure how you get it goes from Bangor over to Dublin and then from Belfast back over to Scotland. I don't know whether that's on a bridge or in a tunnel. I'm not sure. But Williamson says his manifesto is to inspire and provoke, or job done, and if delivered, it would connect Newcastle, Leeds, Manchester and Liverpool with Edinburgh and Glasgow, and then Belfast in Northern Ireland, Dublin in Ireland, Bangor in Wales, in like some massive big loop. The estimated cost is apparently 130 billion. 130 billion for all of that. Right, okay. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Williamson. I think the only thing it's provoked in me is an overwhelming sense of, why did you put your pen to paper on this? But yeah, I'm just speechless, really. There you go. Yeah, I can tell you were super impressed by that.
I just wondered if you were going to sum it up pithily, Richard, as a party.
Well, it's just tosh, isn't it?
There you go.
Complete tosh.
Well said. I agree. Unbelievable. Right. How anyone can suggest that with a straight-faced beggar's belief, to be honest. Italy says its railways were subject to suspected attacks as the Winter Olympics began last week. Police reported 3 separate incidents involving damage to railway lines that they believe are connected to the Games. Rail infrastructure was damaged by fire between Bologna and Venice, triggering delays up to 2.5 hours, and police later found severed cables and an explosive device in locations nearby. Deputy Prime Minister and Transport Minister Matteo Salvini compared the events to the Paris Summer Olympics when saboteurs damaged France's high-speed rail network. He said there are similarities in action and timing to the French incident, he told news agency AFP. And that's the news round for this week. If you'd like to send us any snippets of news, big stories, little stories, your area nationally, please do to news@greensignals.org. And we can't promise to use them all, but if we use yours, we'll credit you with it.
Is it Bologna or is it Bologna?
Oh, is it?
I don't know. We'll probably have the pronunciation police sort of all over, isn't it? Yeah, we're getting into trouble for that anyway.
We're waiting for the voice in the ear to tell me whether I got it right.
I don't know. I've got a feeling it is Bologna. Anyway, not to worry.
Oh,
now.
She's putting a thumb up.
Oh, right. Okay.
So,
I don't know whether to you or to me, but anyway, let's keep going.
I think it was to me, Richard. Obviously.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, no, she's shaking her head.
Yeah.
A bit of zoo podcasting for you here.
Indeed. Which means it's time now to do the quiz. So last week's question was was what do the following railway depots have in common? And I did say you'll need to think a bit laterally.
I like this one.
Right. Hither Green, Polmadie and Cardiff Canton. It was tricky, this. So somebody only got it in about the first 9 minutes or something. Right? Yeah. Not a lot of people did get it, and a lot of people did submit incorrect answers for this. So I was quite pleased in a way, because it clearly wasn't that easy to Google or use AI. So, but the answer was that the 3 shed codes, which are HG for Hither Green, PO for Polmadie, and CF for Cardiff Canton, they're all symbols for elements in the periodic table. They're all metals, aren't they? Mercury, polonium, and californium.
There's really something called californium.
There really is. I think it's actually one of those slightly synthetic, it's highly radioactive. I know that. Anyway, the winner, randomly chosen from the correct answers we had, and we did have quite a few, even though it wasn't a bumper week, was Ego Franceschini. I think or is it Franceschini? I apologise, Ego, if I pronounced that wrong. But anyway, well done. If you send us an email with your address, we will sort you out a mug. I've just had a load of packaging delivered, Nigel, so I'm about 6 mugs behind at the moment. So there's going to be some very busy packing in the next 24 hours to get them all out. So there you go. Right, a really easy one this week. Really, really easy. Or there's a little twist in it to make it a little harder. CrossCountry, you're going to talk about them in a minute. They operate Britain's longest train journey, don't they? Aberdeen to Plymouth. Well, it was Aberdeen to Penzance.
It used to go to Penzance. They cut it back not long ago, didn't they?
They did, but it's still Aberdeen to Plymouth.
Something it was.
Something on a Voyager. Yeah, big smile.
Let the joy be unconfined.
So my question is this: where is the shortest train journey in Britain, and where is the shortest in Europe? Okay. A lot of people think that the one in Britain is the one in Europe. I don't think it is. I think there's a shorter one in Europe. So where is the shortest in Britain and where's the shortest in Europe? If you want to have a chance to win the mug, I need both, right?
I think you're going to be inundated for answers to the first
one. I'm sure I will, but I thought it was only fair to have a slightly easier one. Try not to blurt it out. If you, thank you for trying and succeeding. If you think you know answers to quiz@greensignals.org by midday on Saturday, 14th Feb, after which we'll put all the correct answers in a hat and select a winner at random to get one of our quiz winners mugs.
Your kitchen table will be busy with packaging.
It will.
A good story to end on this week, Richard, and you will know all about it. CrossCountry has unveiled its first fully refurbished Voyager. To me, they're still new trains. Following a £75 million investment in the fleet funded by rolling stock company Beacon. Here's a great figure, Richard, and you know I like numbers. Since it was built, the first refurbished set, 220033, has clocked up 5,811,605 miles of travel, which is the equivalent, wait for it, of travelling to the moon and back more than 12 times. And I'm not going to give too much more away about the new look because it was unveiled on February 10th at Alstom's Derby Litchurch Lane site, where the work has been carried out. And you were there, Richard, shooting the action, not the breeze, for us.
I was. It was a great event. It was a really good event, and got some good footage. Got a couple of minutes with Shona Rolfe, who's the managing director of CrossCountry as well. And it was just a happy event. You know, I think the train looked great. I mean, for 75 million, and there's quite a lot of trains. It's more of a cosmetic refurb. So below the soul bar, it's the same train, which is fine, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I was slightly depressed. Your comment about making you still think they're young trains. Somebody said, when did these start? And I thought, well, I can remember when we set up the procurement office at Virgin Trains for what then became Pendolinos and Voyagers. We didn't know that's what they were called at the time. And that was in 1997. So it is next year, it is 30 years since we started the procurement. We signed the contracts, 98 heads of terms, 99 was financial close. And then, of course, the first ones were, 2001, weren't they? Yeah, it's nearly 30 years ago that we started the process. Do you feel a bit older now?
Well, absolutely. I
did yesterday, I can tell you.
I remember Bombardier and Colin Walton flew me and Roger Ford to the south of France for the tilting test down there. And there's a whole story about that I can tell you over a beer. But it was another lifetime. And here we are it's past midlife refurb, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, here's two fun facts for you very quickly before we end the show on those. First thing is, the actual deal that got signed with Bombardier in 98 was not for all Voyagers. It was actually the non-tilts were going to be push-pull units with a loco.
Really?
And coaches, yeah. And it was converted to all DEMUs the following 12 months. And there's reasons for that, and maybe we'll do a show on that at some point as to why. But yeah, but here's the other fun fact, which people may not know, is that the other serious bidder for CrossCountry was Adtrans, and their bid included a bimode unit.
Really? That was before
which
its
was
time,
called,
wasn't it?
which I think from memory was called a power switch. Can you imagine that? Yeah. I mean, at the time we thought, I wonder if that'll catch on. Well, guess what? Yeah, but there you go.
And sadly, that's all we got time for this week. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, makes a real difference to us. And if you really want to support us, find out about membership over on YouTube or at Patreon. But most importantly, join us again here next week for this show, which will always be free. We'll see you then. And until then, it's goodbye from me, and
it's goodbye from me.
Have a brilliant week.